So today, check that down there, we're going to be replacing a lower hose on a 2004 BMW 3 Series. Relatively simple, relatively straightforward, but it's going to be a good example of how this will work. So it's going to run from down there. Now, the problem I see is I don't actually know what you're seeing, but we'll play around with that. So let's see what we need. I'm going to get this guy out of the way. We're going to pull this up. Then we'll remove the fan, which it's not good anymore, but yeah, so he'll end up needing a clutch fan eventually, but not my problem at the moment. So let's do it this way. Take that little guy, take that little guy. What I'm going to do, might also smoke test it, because the elbows on these cars, if you're getting any kind of vacuum leak or mixture codes, it's probably going to be the intake boot. Might be ripped on you. Take this out. 2 10 mils, 1 and 2. This hose has a little clip on it. I'll show you once I get it off. Actually, you know what? I'm going to leave that over here. Quite lucky. 2 and 3. Come off as one piece. You're right there. There. Now the car is cold, but we're gonna keep chugging along and checking. Excuse the mess. And it's pretty clean. Looking down in there for any kind of oil. Looking down below, down bottom of the radiator, or underneath the alternator. So the bracket, oil filter housing bracket, is not leaking. Belt looks in pretty good shape too. Now comes the next fun bit. Go off to the side. This little guy is going to come out of there. One, 2. Like so. Little Torx. To the little guy. Nope. Let's see. T25 should be. set it up on the other one, but ratchet, but by hand it goes just as easy, just as quick. And it's gonna fight me. That exploded, but we got extras, so that's fine. All right, now comes the tricky part. A couple different ways of doing this. Right now we're removing the fan shroud. So I already loosened it. This is a relatively cheap tool, Harbor Freight. I want to say it's the, oh, what is it? Fan clutch wrench set. End up hooking this up to an little air hammer, air chisel. I use a little one, don't necessarily need a big one. Sit that down there. It is a 32. You can also use a wrench, 32 mil or a 1.25 inches. 1.25 inches, what you would end up doing, sit a pry bar down on one of the bolts. So then you can hold it open after you got that. Then you can tap with a hammer and essentially do the same thing as this little guy. So that is why it is okay not to spend the money, but in some situations there's a lot of stuff that you can break, right? Because you're hammering it this way. You're essentially going clockwise, righty-loosey. And with that, you run the risk of hitting the expansion tank, this upper hose, which can be quite loose. Grab that wrench again, show you, lock that down, good to go. All we're gonna do is undo that by hand. And there's a good trick. Take care of the future guys. If anybody else has to work on this, or if you know you're going back into it eventually, put a little bit of anti-seize down on the threads for the water pump. You really don't want to be hammering away too much on it, but I've never seen any damage from anybody tapping. Give them a little love tap. So yeah, and this is bad. By the way, we're not replacing it. He doesn't want to, but that is the sign of a bad clutch fan. You can see it just goes nice and quick. So if you can, replace it. If not, not the end of the world, especially in winter, I would suppose. Looking for leaks, but everything else looks pretty good. So this is the hose that we're after. As you can see, it is in fact leaking. I don't know why it's sitting at such a strange angle. Kind of see it there, I hope. But that is in fact the hose that is leaking. So I don't see any leaks on the bottom of that, so that's good. The expansion tank looks relatively new. There is no coolant in it. But the car was not overheated, as far as my knowledge, which is quite good. Bring you guys over here so I can kind of see what you're seeing. Okay. So what we're going to do next, unplug the sensor, just like so. We'll push tab. We're replacing that as well because you always should. That little gasket that's inside of there can go bad, and then it's just a fucking mess. What we're going to do next, we're going to set the jacks, lift up the front of the car, put a drip tray underneath it, or I call it my little oil vat underneath there, so then all the coolant can run down onto that and not onto my floor and get my shoes all wet. Let's see now. So now we got it jacked up just on driver's side with a little oil vat underneath there. Hopefully that catches some of it. I'm going to pull this thing apart. What I like to do relatively nice and controlled. Let's pull that little sensor out. Then you'll get a little stream. You can keep it away from the belts for the most part. And then it drains nicely. So we're going to let that go for a little bit. I'm going to pull the clips. I can show you. New hose from FCP Euro. Not sponsored. But, so I already put this in. Part number on that little guy. Let's say I have an extra one up here somewhere. Typically I keep one or two of these. It is what it is. But lower radiator hose, 1 clip, 2 clip, that's pretty much it. You will get a lot of resistance from the seal down in here. I like to take a little bit of coolant on the finger, just wet that, and then I can just sit up there for right now. Take a little bit of anti-seize. New container of anti-seize. Fucking bougie. Go little boop like that. If you work with anti-seize, you know it gets everywhere. But it is some of the best. Okay. Take a screwdriver. Pop the top. 1, 2, and then I like to just save these. So I'll pull them completely off. Just like that. Throw that off to the side. Same with the bottom one. Relatively straightforward. Little pick. Little pick's gonna go in underneath it. Just give it a nice little pull up, and then off to the sides. What happens when you get older? Fingers don't fit into the tight spaces anymore. There you go. 1 and 2. They are good to hold on to. If you have one of these cars, if you keep one of these cars, they're just a genuinely good thing to keep. I will say that was the easiest hose to pull that I have ever had. That does not normally happen. Normally, that goes flying everywhere. And that, you almost have to stick a pry bar in here and just work it nice and slow, back and forth, back and forth. Same with the top one. This may be the actual easiest time I've ever had to do one of these hoses. Let's take a look. That is flattened in there. Super flat. And that's even flattened right there. You can kind of see that down inside there it's all nice and flattened. But that is what it is. What we're going to do now, take a piece of nice and fine Scotch-Brite. We're not going to go crazy, but we want to get all that shit off of there. Same with this. I want to just make sure we get as much of that gunk and crap off of there as possible. So we get a nice seal. It can go back. Perfect. 1 and 2. And that's pretty much it. You know, it's not a crazy difficult job. If it was my car, I would do pretty much what I recommended before. This person, I would change out the expansion tank, I'd change out the upper hose. I'd probably even do the thermostat all in one shot, just so then everything up top here is just new. You don't have to necessarily think about it or worry about it. But yeah, that's it. So all that's going to happen now is this eye is going to go down there, get clicked on. Not touching nothing too crazy. This little guy is going to come up here, get clicked on. Not touching nothing too crazy. 1 and 2. Let's talk about bleeding. What we're going to do is, this is mixed 50-50, corner to the back. So we should be good for -34 in this climate. That's more than enough. So this is actually probably more like 70-30 anyway. Just take our time filling it up. It's going to take quite a bit because it was quite empty and quite a lot came out. Alright, so know what I'm doing. This is a bleeder screw. I'll use it for the original, or for the first fill. But I don't want to have the car run with that open. You don't necessarily need it. As long as you're circulating it for a little bit, you have the heater on, and you should get all the air pockets out of it. And because this car was run on so low coolant, like there's none in this expansion tank. So I have the feeling we're going to have a lot of air in it. So, got the heater all the way up. Done recirc. We got getting to it. I mean, we're almost there.